it's saying that our economy will grow at 5.5% and all through to 6% into 2019. The analysis, the improvement in performances, and also that focus on growth or actually mobilizing for more revenue here in the country. I know we're all worried about widening the tax base because everything is being taxed, even Bibles and Qurans, so we're worried. But joining me tonight to give us highlights and projections from the World Bank is actually a senior public sector specialist, Moses Kajubi. Welcome to Newsnight.
Thank you very much, Claudia.
The biggest conversation is that we are worried they're going to tax everything to try and, to get enough money to support the economy. But before we get into that, just give us what were highlighted today at the economic update.
Yeah, in the launch today, we had a look at the economy, which has rebounded back, and that is very good information for the Ugandans. It's also expected to look much better. Currently, we estimate that it will grow at about 5.5%, and looking into the future, we see it growing at about 6%. As a highlight, we also saw the factors that have caused the good growth in the economy. The good weather that we've all have seen has helped. We've had the international economies grow, and this has been reflected in the demand for our products, especially coffee, that grew at about 12% compared to how much it grew last year. The manufacturing sector has come back, and it's now a giant in the room that we need to watch, and it's driving the economy. Government has also been able to implement some of the infrastructure investments they planned to invest, and that is also speaking to the good story in the economic growth of Uganda.
You say good things, and not to sound like a typical Ugandan who gets negative at any point, but you've talked about public infrastructure, and I'm sure expenditure-wise, the numbers, they still need more money. Because you said the focus was on revenue mobilization. You're trying to get more domestic revenue mobilization. Were there highlights on how we can do it? Why we're at a point where we don't have enough of?
Yes. The report pointed out that one of the risks into the future is when government fails to invest in the infrastructure that they plan to invest in for the oil or other economic activity. That will bring back the growth that we have seen. Now, Uganda can raise more revenues. Our estimation is that we can move from the current performance of about 14% tax to GDP to more than 18 to 23% tax to GDP ratio. So the report has been highlighting a number of areas where we could go into.
I was about to ask, what are our options?
Now, we have a number of options. The first and foremost is the fact that when you look at why we are not performing, there are some sectors that are not being taxed enough. One of them, which is a big one, is agriculture, 24% GDP contribution, but it brings in less than 1% in taxes. We have a challenge of informality, which we need to address. And informality in Uganda is not the small businessman who is on the streets, but it's this big person who transacts in cash, is not regulated, is hard to reach, and you cannot tackle him.
Taxes, exemptions, somewhere in there?
Yes, exemption is another story. In the economic update, we are indicating that about 4 to 5% of revenue is foregone in tax exemptions. Certainly, the compliance of the taxpayers is one of those factors that needs to improve. We see quite a number of lack of compliance, which can be driven by support from the URA, but on the other hand, also when government improves the social or service delivery to the citizens. Citizens pay better when they see services delivered.
As we're winding up, I'd like to know how you would suggest, or how best can maybe government include the population in this revenue mobilization, because the minute they mention taxes, we get worried, we pull back. So how best can they involve the population to also be open to being part of this revenue mobilization?
In the discussion this morning, it came out very well. Government is planning to bring a domestic revenue mobilization strategy, which is a long-term revenue mobilization strategy, like you have the expenditure strategy. And around the time when it's being developed, every person should be in the room, where public sector, civil society, government bureaucrats, the academics are brought on board to brainstorm and even advise government on what can be done to improve the revenue. So let's have a whole nationwide strategy and not a strategy developed by
one. Everyone should be part of the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much. From the World Bank, Moses Kajubi. That's it for Newsnight.
Thank you.